Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode. By the time I'm recording this, the NBA draft is officially today, but we got some trades to break down. The offseason has officially kicked off and begun. We had the Kevin Durant and Jalen Green trade on Sunday, the day of Game 7, and now we've had a couple more trades go through the works. 2 trades from the Boston Celtics and a trade between the Wizards and the Pelicans that we're just going to break down and just talk about some other like housekeeping things going into this draft coming up tonight at 7. Fred VanVleet just re-upped for 2 more years, $50 million from the Houston Rockets, declining that $44 million team option. Pretty much expected that. In my Kevin Durant trade breakdown video, I said that it kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion, to bring in somebody like Kevin Durant and then to lose somebody like Fred VanVleet. So I'm glad they decided to wrap him up for a couple more years. That just made sense to me. But getting into the trades, we're going to start out with the Boston Celtics, another middle of the night, random kind of timing kind of trade. This is kind of how the NBA works. Is everything could just happen at 11:30 at night while you're laying in bed about to go to sleep, and then boom, a trade happens and it could shift the league. So looking at this just shows to me how the Boston Celtics are operating going into this offseason. One, yes, Jayson Tatum is injured, and I think that has a big reason to do with why they are shuffling the pieces like they are. But I think they were already going into this offseason with the mindset of doing that, because this shows how scary the second apron is for a lot of teams, and they don't want to deal with it. So they, by any means necessary, of getting robbed in trades and maybe taking on some bad players in terms of trading your good players, this just shows how impactful the second apron has become for teams that are looking to compete and win championships. But the Jayson Tatum injury did throw a wrench into things, and I think they're going to be doing a little bit more selling than they probably would have going into this offseason. But breaking down the first trade, Boston Celtics get Anthony Simons and 2 future second-round picks, and the Portland Trailblazers get guard Jrue Holiday. So this is insane because Jrue Holiday was a part of the Damian Lillard trade. Then Boston swoops in and gets Jrue Holiday from the Portland Trailblazers years ago. It seems like Boston and Portland have a very good working relationship over there. So looking at this, I do think the Boston Celtics fleeced. I really, really do. In terms of just talking numbers, not talking players, you're looking at Jrue Holiday, who has multiple years left on his contract, plus a player option on the last year of his deal as well, worth about $37 million, if I'm not mistaken, for Anthony Simons, who, yes, is a young scorer, fits offensively what Boston likes to do. He's a really, really good shooter, really good shot creator, somebody who, yes, without Jayson Tatum, can put the ball in the basket. He is somebody that can average over 20 points a game in this league for sure, but defensively is a lot to be desired, which is why I think Portland was fine getting rid of him. If you're looking at what Portland has done over this past year, they are really trying to build an identity with Chauncey Billups, who they extended this offseason as well, to look at and build some sort of defensive identity with Tamai Kamara. Now you had in Jrue Holiday. They were actually one of the best teams in the league in terms of just creating pressure in the full court pressure and half court pressure as well. So they're building an identity and a culture over there defensively in Portland, which I like the Jrue Holiday had for them, but just talking specifically off the numbers, Boston fleeced, because Jrue Holiday is somebody who might not age the best as a player, multiple years left on his deal, plus a player option on the last year as well. Getting off of that and not having to attach any draft capital to get off of that, I think is massive for the Boston Celtics going forward into this offseason. And it's really just showing how good Brad Stevens is really just at his job. Getting off that Jrue Holiday contract without having to attach any draft capital to it, great work. And you get an Anthony Simons, who you can kind of really take a flyer on, who's on an expiring deal going into this next season. And now if you're Boston, you're going into this year thinking, in my opinion, now that reports have also come out of them trying to trading up into the lottery and everything else like that, I think it's super interesting, because now I view the Celtics team as more of going the tanking route compared to, we're going to have Brown and Derek White and anybody we get from Jrue Holiday or KP trade, and we're going to just see what we are. We're not worried about tanking. We're just trying to see where we are and what we can develop on this team in this gap year that they have. But now I think they're going more into the we're going to look to tank route going into next year, because now when you're looking at it, the year that they're going to have Jayson Tatum back after a full season off the injury, pretty much a full offseason of rehab next year, they're going into an offseason where they're going to have a lot of financial freedom with Anthony Simon's expiring contract, and we're going to talk about the KP trade a little bit later on. But now completely getting off the Jrue Holiday trade contract and KP contract, they've saved over $180 million in tax money. So I think that is a very, very good trade for the Boston Celtics. And I think they fleeced from a numbers perspective. Now, talking about Portland, this is interesting. I think I would love this trade a lot more because they're a team that's just like, we're just trying to break through the ceiling. We're trying to see if we can make the play-in, see what we can do in that realm next year with Chauncey Billups as a head coach, see if the playoff experience and just having more of a winning culture can help guys develop over here. But they have a guy named Shaedon Sharpe where I'm like, is he ever going to reach his fullest potential coming off the bench for you? Because you're bringing in Jrue Holiday. Are you bringing in somebody making $34, $35 million and you're going to have him come off the bench? And I don't even think Jrue Holiday wants that for his career at this point right now because he still feels like he won a championship not too long ago, and he still probably feels like he can compete on a championship caliber team and can produce to winning. But Portland, yes, they are a fun, exciting young team that could break out next year. I could also see a world where they're just still like the 12th seed in the Western Conference just because how deep and talented the West is. So like the addition of Jrue Holiday, player-wise, I like it. But now you're pairing his money up with Jeremy Grant's money. Jrue Holiday has a couple more years left on the deal. You had to give up draft capital to get Jrue Holiday, and even though it's only 2 second-round picks, but still you had to give up draft capital in this trade. Like, unless Portland has something else in the works of getting off like a Jeremy Grant or DeAndre Ayton, I'm not really falling in love with this trade for the Portland Trailblazers side of things because when you're looking at this, like where's Shaedon Sharpe's development going to come from? I know they have the new like defensive duo with Jrue Holiday and Toumani Camara. I love that, but it's just like they have so much on this team where I'm still like, is Shaedon Sharpe possibly going to get moved? Like, is he still going to just be coming off the bench for them? Like, what's Jrue Holiday's minutes going to look like? I like this trade for the Boston Celtics side of things because it gives them financial freedom for when they want to compete again with Jayson Tatum. But for Portland, it's like, yeah, Jrue Holiday, great defender, a lot of money on that contract, and will this hinder the development of somebody like Shaedon Sharpe going forward, which is interesting to see. Like, I think he's going to do wonders in helping Scoot Henderson out and being kind of a mentor for him going forward down the line. But looking at this, I like Denny, I like Jrue Holiday, I like Toumani Camara and what they're building over there. You still got to figure out what you're doing with Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, see if Scoot Henderson can take a leap. But like, where's Shaedon Sharpe's fit going in all of this, or is he a possible player that they look to pivot and move? Who knows? But that's just kind of my mindset going into this trade. Really like this for the Boston Celtics side. For Portland, I'm going to have to wait and see what else they have in store this offseason because this looks like a move that creates another move for Portland this offseason. Now going into, actually, and we're going to go right into the KP trade, and then we're going to go into the Pelicans and Wizards trade just because we're talking about the Celtics. Now, I actually mocked this exact pretty much Kristaps Porzingis trade. I just didn't have the Brooklyn Nets in it. I had Niang, Terrence Mann, and 22 going to the Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks getting Kristaps Porzingis. But looking at this, Boston gets Georges Niang and a second-round pick. Atlanta gets Kristaps Porzingis in a second-round pick, and Terrence Mann goes to the Brooklyn Nets with the 22nd overall pick from the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta Hawks have 2 first-round picks, so they're fine giving up number 22 to get somebody like Kristaps Porzingis. Again, talking from the Boston Celtics side of things, they already saved with Jrue Holiday and KP those trades of saving over $180 million in tax money, so I really, really like that for them. Brooklyn slides and gets another first-round pick. Now they have 5 first-round picks in this year's draft, and they have 3 within 20 to 30 range. So looking at that, I'm interested to see what Brooklyn does leading up to tonight's draft, if they consolidate all those picks and try to move up, maybe into like a top 5 to get like somebody like Ace Bailey. I don't know. I'm interested to see what the Brooklyn Nets are doing with 5 first-round picks in this year's draft. For Atlanta, I'm glad I've had time to because when a trade happens, you already have immediate thoughts about it. I'm glad I kind of sat and waited on this one to make a video about it because Kristaps Porzingis, I like this move. I mocked this move in my mock draft when I did trades and having fun with it. Kristaps Porzingis is turning into a if player. He's turning into a big if player because what I do like is the Atlanta Hawks getting somebody of his caliber. I think that raises their ceiling for basically nothing. 22nd overall pick, Terrence Mann, Georges Niang. You're not losing any sleep over that stuff, especially when you already have another first round pick in this year's draft anyways. So looking at that, I really do like what Kristaps can be for the Atlanta Hawks, but he's a big if player. If Kristaps Porzingis is healthy, and I'm looking at this Atlanta Hawks team with Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Risha Shea, Jalen Johnson, Double O, Kristaps Porzingis, another first-round pick in this year's draft tonight. I'm really looking at this team as like in a wide open Eastern Conference with no Indiana Pacers probably next year without Tyrese Halliburton, no Boston Celtics without Jayson Tatum. And I'm looking at the Atlanta Hawks. I'm like, they can compete with the Cleveland Cavaliers with this team. They can compete with the New York Knicks with this team. But Kristaps Porzingis is a big what-if player if he can stay healthy. Kristaps Porzingis at this point is not even playing over 50-something games in a season. And both of the Boston Celtics playoff runs, he wasn't even healthy for to begin with. So if they get a healthy version of Kristaps Porzingis, then I really, really love this trade for Atlanta. But if they don't, then it's just like, okay, you didn't really give up a whole lot, and it's an expiring. So you're like, okay, whatever, we're going to wash our hands with the situation. But does Kristaps Porzingis elevate this team's ceiling next year in the Eastern Conference? I really, really do believe so, because now they're taking a page out of the Pacers book when a floor spacing 5 that can be a rim protector, kind of pairing him up with Trae Young to where Trae Young can get downhill whenever he wants now. And I think this also allows the Atlanta Hawks to play a little bit bigger with Kristaps at the 5, and you can run Double O at the 4 because he's very versatile defensively. But looking at this trade is all going to come down to what this looks like this year and Kristaps Porzingis' health. If he is healthy, then I really truly believe that they're in a good position next year to really compete. Them or Orlando are taking massive jumps next year in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, with them getting Desmond Bane, and then with Kristaps Porzingis going to the Atlanta Hawks. I think if Kristaps is healthy, like I said, I think they're going to be in a really, really good position out there in the Eastern Conference next year. But Boston frees up more and more money. Talking about some other rumors that are coming out, it looks like the Toronto Raptors offered pick number 9 in exchange for Derek White, because the Boston Celtics are trying to move into the top 10 tonight for this year's draft, which I think is super, super interesting. I wonder who they're eyeing to get in that top 10, because I think they could go out and get like somebody like a Carter Bryant or Colin Murray Boyles, like somebody like that, like in like the teens. But I don't know. It looks like they have something cooking up, because it also looks like the Utah Jazz and Danny Ainge are very, very interested in a guy like Jaylen Brown and possibly being traded. And now, with all this stuff coming out about the Boston Celtics, I feel like they're going more the tanking route compared to the we're going to be all right and compete route in this gap year without Jayson Tatum, which I think is going to serve them better, getting off of like some bigger contracts, getting more financial freedom going into next year's offseason when you get Jayson Tatum back fully healthy and ready to go. So looking at this, I think it's very interesting to see what else happens with the Boston Celtics going into this offseason. 2 big-time moves from them already to free up a lot of money going into the future. But getting off of Jaylen Brown tonight in this year's draft would be a very big-time move. And I'm interested to see if they do pivot and get off of Derek White as well, because all the reports are looking towards and trending towards them trying to look more so to tank and get some young players and see what they have going forward. But that is all I have for Boston and just the Boston trades in general. Now we're going to get into kind of like a whatever trade, interesting trade. Pelicans get Jordan Poole, Sadiq Bey, and number 40 in this year's draft tonight. The Washington Wizards get CJ McCollum, Kelly Olynyk, and future second-round pick. So looking at this, from the Pelican side of things first, you're pretty much exchanging different versions of a player in CJ McCollum and Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole, obviously a lot younger, can give you a lot of the same game has CJ McCollum with his floor spacing ability, the ability to run the 1 at times or the 2 at times, depending on what kind of lineups you have out there. He's a scorer first guard for sure that provides you some spacing. And with the injury to DeJounte Murray, I think that dynamic in that backcourt is going to be very interesting once DeJounte comes back and what kind of DeJounte Murray we get when he comes back off the Achilles. But I think Jordan Poole is a very good option that's on the younger side of CJ McCollum that you have for 1 more year. So looking at this, I think Jordan Poole is a very good option because he can come in and slide in at that point guard position, and it kind of already addresses a need that CJ would have, but you're getting a younger version with this kind of younger core and timeline that you're building in New Orleans, which I'm not really mad at. You add Sadiq Bey as well, another wing that can slide into your rotation as well, can be a spacer for you, and you're getting a second-round pick. I like this more for the Pelicans than the Wizards. Now, the Wizards, now they're stockpiling on vets with CJ McCollum, Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton. You bring in Kelly Olynyk as well. Pairing up, there's a lot of good vets with a lot of young players over there in Washington. I like the direction. I see the vision that they're going in. But in the Eastern Conference, maybe they're also going to the direction of, like, Portland in a way, to where we're just looking to see if we can make some noise. The East is going to be weak next year. Let's see if we can make some noise in the plan, see if we can get Alex R, some playoff minutes, AJ Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly. Let's see, and we already have another pick in the top 10 tonight, so let's see what Washington can do. And having a lot of vets, of guys that know how to win, guys that have been there, done that, I think can really help the development and growth of this team, because Washington has not really had a lot of good vets. When you think of like Kyle Kuzma, I'm not going to say Jordan Poole's really a vet in this league, but like they haven't really had a lot of good locker room guys, it seems like, in Washington. So CJ McCollum, Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, all this gives them a lot of financial freedom next year in the offseason, because you got Chris Middleton, who picked up his player option. Now he's an expiring. CJ McCollum is an expiring, and Marcus Smart, I'm pretty sure, is an expiring as well. So you have a lot of money right there in those three that are all going to be off the books after this season, and you kind of get off the Jordan Poole money a little bit earlier, and kind of hit a little bit of a reset next offseason in terms of your books and what you can do in free agency. Not saying Washington is like this big time free agent destination, but I do like the direction of kind of trying to have an open cap sheet. Maybe you see if you can get lucky and bring in a big fish next offseason with your young talent. I do like what they're building over there in Washington, because I think the vets are going to help out the young guys a ton this next season. And like I said, the East is going to be weak, and maybe you can get Alex R some play-in minutes or some playoff minutes next year, depending on how everything falls out health-wise in the East. But for the Pelicans, very interesting move. Interested to see what else they have in store. I know Joe Dumars, running the show over there, is in an interesting position with what they're doing with Zion Williamson and what they have going forward. Can this team ever just get healthy at the right time? So interested to see what they do with their draft picks as well. Like, they've been a team that could be rumored to look to trade up. But these three trades are very interesting. I think they're all very good trades to kind of test the waters after the Kevin Durant trade, to see what direction teams are going into tonight's draft. I feel like when I'm recording this is a couple hours before the NBA draft tonight. I feel like we're going to see more and more rumors come out about potential trades, what teams could be moving up, what teams could be trading down. This is the best time of year to be a fan of the NBA. But that is all I have breaking down these three trades before the NBA draft. I'm probably going to make a first round reaction to this year's draft, seeing what trades happened or what teams moved up, moved down, what picks I liked, what picks I didn't like, and comparing it to my mock that I did as well. But that is all I have for this episode of the Barrel Talk Podcast. Hope you tune in to future episodes.